Hey guys, before we dive into the show, I wanted to tell you about the perfect trailer queue blueprint, which is 100% free and you can download it right now over at thetrailermusicschool.com/blueprint. Now, this blueprint will help you to completely understand the structure of trailer music, how to build tracks that will be more licensable and have more impact and capture the right people's attention. So, whenever you start writing a cue, make sure you've got this blueprint to hand and you can use it to help speed up your process, feel more confident that you've crafted a well-structured trailer cue before you send it off to that publisher or editor or supervisor. Okay, let's get into the episode. One man with one microphone. Welcome to the Trailer Music Composers Podcast. Welcome to another episode of the Trailer Music Composers Podcast. Today I am joined with the superstar Emma Middleton. Emma, welcome to the show.
Having me. You made me go red already with the superstar.
Yeah, I was in my head, I was like, do I say supervisor or just going with superstar? I'll go with superstar. So Emma, for those of you who in the audience who don't know anything about you, why don't you give us a little brief introduction to who you are and what you do?
I am now a freelance supervisor. I used to be in-house in a trailer company. I'm based in London, well, just outside of London. And I went freelance during the pandemic, so I'm kind of still getting to grips with what the landscape looks like because it is still a little odd. But I basically work with producers and editors from different trailer houses and find music or guide them and clear it if somebody else isn't already clearing it. But mostly my focus is on creative and trying to do custom whenever possible and when budget permits, which isn't very often in the UK. And then just trying to work on unusual projects as much as possible. It's a bit cliche, but I like left field kind of approaches. I'm not really going after the like Marvel trailers and that kind of thing. I don't think I'd be as good at it. I like the kind of weird, dark, trippy, strange stuff. So.
Hey, you're singing to the choir here. Well, there's so many questions I want to fire at you. The first one, the thing for me, podcast is so much about the stories. And the first question: how do you get into music supervision? I mean, where do you start? So let's go back. Where did you start?
An internship in the trailer house. So I was at university doing English, but I'd always known I wanted to do something with music in film, TV. I'd never considered trailers. I didn't know that was a thing, an industry in itself, which a lot of people still don't. I still can't explain to relatives what I do or anyone I meet. So, but I tried looking for like runner positions and internships and all sorts of things, and I found the one at Create where I used to work, which was it was like 3 months in London, and I was living in York at the time, and I had to lodge with someone, and I was on my own, and I didn't have much money, and it was one of those moments where you kind of feel like you're in a film. I'm sure you still do, like when you're still working on stuff, you're like, how is this actually happening to me right now? And I just kind of felt like a puppy, kind of like wide-eyed, running around like eager, trying to just do what you're meant to do on an internship scheme, like you eager to please, show that you're hungry, like just do everything, take it all in like a sponge, try and like knock on doors and get in when you can. But it is quite intimidating because I was 19 and I was quite nervous. These seasoned editors shut behind doors and you're just there like, can I come and disturb you and just sit in the corner and watch? It's like you can kind of tell sometimes they're just busy, or then you don't want to ask again. So it's kind of like just building the confidence to just go for it, because you won't get that chance again. And I do regret not having knocked on more doors, because there were things I could have used when I first then went back there for a job. So basically I did that internship, went back to uni, completed my studies, and just kept in touch. Like, I made sure they remembered me when I left, like did like little handwritten gifts to like every single person in the office and
Wow.
stuff like that. And I stayed friends with someone that then got a job there. So kind of whenever I saw him, I made sure I went in and updated where I was at. I think I gave the front of house guy my CV every time, wherever I was at, and then had a different job in a different company after uni for a year. And then it just so happened that at one point they were looking for a new kind of merged role thing, somebody to look after music a bit and do other like front of house and events and PA stuff, all that kind of thing. And then I just took that as my opportunity to be like, right, I'm going to be the music person. Because in the UK, a lot of the trailer houses don't have in-house music people. I mean, there's not that many trailer houses, as you know, in the UK. So they didn't actually have someone doing it at the time. So I had to kind of forge a role for myself and, again, knock on doors, try and just find stuff out from persistent questions, being that annoying person, and tidying up like the mess of music that no one had dealt with for years, and trying to just learn the ropes from listening to things. I don't think I found your podcast at that point, but that would have been very helpful. But like meeting people at events or people in the like label side, kind of hearing their experiences with other supervisors and being like, oh, okay, I'm doing it right. And you just have to not be scared to look stupid and keep asking questions of everyone you meet, because there's a different spin on everything. I was learning supervising within a trailer house. If I meet most other supervisors, they've gone into it from like the label publisher side. So I don't have all that background, but they don't have mine. And it's quite a weird industry, but that is how I got in. I don't know how normal that is, but
I think in the many creative industries, I don't think there is a normal way for anyone. That I haven't spoken to anybody that's like story has matched up.
no.
Whether it's the length of time it gets to get in, it's the way you get it. It's amazing. I just want to. You brushed over something for me, which I think is the crucial point. So you were kind of like, oh yeah, so I decided I was going to be the music person. So
Right.
give us a little bit more detail there, because obviously it wasn't your company. You can rock in there and be like, guys, I'm the supervisor.
I didn't think about that. Yeah. Well, because I always knew I wanted to do something with music anyway. I think before I did that internship, I'd been looking at like the role of a music editor. I thought that was what I wanted to do, and like I was like, I want to be the person that makes the stuff match up. But I didn't know a supervisor was a job, so I was clearly trying to find the words to describe that. But I was looking at score at the time, so like I was obsessed with Thomas Newman's Revolutionary Road score, and there's like this moment in it, and I was like, did the composer kind of line that up to kind of for that cadence to land at that moment, or was it the music editor, or whatever it is, I want to do that. So I tried to just find ways that I could be doing something like that in the company. And then I found out from the editors that music searches were a thing. And I tried to, it wasn't very good, but I tried to help one of the editors with a search. She was working on like a period drama trailer, and the queue wasn't quite working, and she was showing me why it wasn't and just kind of showing me the edit. And I went away, and in hindsight, I think the stuff I pulled for her was like score stuff. Like it wasn't trailer music. It was the right tone and it was the right emotion and everything, but I didn't have the vocabulary to have that pacing and the structure there. So I think she was obviously being polite and trying to just give me an in to it, but she was like, oh yeah, these are really nice. Like, clearly it wasn't right, but so it just pat on the head. But I really appreciated that, because they could have just ignored me and been like, well, we don't really do, like, we just find music, and I wouldn't have had any answers. So I did that, and then I met someone who, I'm not going to say his name just in case it gets inundated with people messaging, but works at a big trailer company, and one of the producers connected me with him, and we kind of got talking, really got on, had very similar interests. And I tried to describe to him what I wanted, and he was like, it sounds like you want to be a composer, which then threw another spanner in the works. And I was like, what? I thought it was searches and things. And he was like, the way you're talking sounds like you want to compose the music. So he gave me the advice to get a Mac, buy Logic, learn all of that. So I went back to uni and did some like student short films and stuff, and kind of forgot about the supervision because I never really learned about it during that internship. And then I think I'm trying to connect the dots. When that job came up again, I think I went back in and just learned from scratch in the job. Like the first months, I was like, okay, I have to find people music. I got it all wrong. I like pulled stuff, and the producer and the editor were like, this isn't right at all. This is, you know, it was probably like score based again. It wasn't trailery. It didn't fit the pacing of the visuals. And I cringe a bit when I think back to those moments, but like, obviously that's got me to where I am now. So I guess it was just learning about searches was the thing.
So where would you, as a trainee, I guess was you officially the supervisor then, or was it that you
I was
worked
like
there?
junior. It was kind of like part of my title, but it wasn't.
Okay. As the almost music supervisor, where would you have been looking for music?
Libraries, so production music libraries. Obviously that spans from, like, there could be things like Audio Network, or like, I'm going to say this in inverted commas, premium trailer, like I'm talking budget ranges, not quality. And then commercial music, so like sending briefs out to labels and publishers and indie sync reps and things like that. I mean, at the time, I briefed out to people way more than I do now, because I didn't have like a hard drive of music to go through. So it was either that or go through like Spotify or something, which I would occasionally do. And then I'd have to get the files from the rights holders and things. And it all takes time when you know how fast trailers move. Like, that was probably the most stressful thing, like collating files and getting used to the systems of like the editors like chomping at the bit, like I need music now, and you're trying to deliver and drop it and put it all in the right folders and get the high res files, and all of that mixed in with actually learning how to find the right music and write a brief and not give too much away so that you don't break NDAs and all of that side of things. There's a lot that goes into it, more than just, like, we're going to find a bit of like upbeat pop music.
Upbeat pop for the family movie.
Yeah.
So just for those in the audience who don't know what NDA is, can you describe what that is so that we're...
Yes. Non-disclosure agreement. So they're all over the trailer industry. If you so much as breathe towards like what you might be working on, especially if it's like the big, like Star Wars or something like that, then you just don't want to do it. Like, even it is some people are more adhere to it more than others, I would say. But when I was in-house, we were always so careful. Like, even if you were like out completely wasted at a bar, like the code was like still there. You would all still refer to stuff with, like, that thing we're on, like, everyone is so careful. So NDAs right now, I have to sign them when I start working with a trailer house. and I can't tell anyone else. So like if I got a composer on something, they would have to usually sign the trailer houses thing. So a lot of the time, or if you're briefing out on searches or anything like that, you're having to dance around stuff constantly. And part of that is the skill of doing the job, I would say, is like finding ways to convey just enough that people understand what you need from what you need from them, but not going so close that if they did a quick Google, they'd instantly find what the project was.
Yeah, I think that's one of the greatest skills of a music supervisor is being able to supply a music brief that adheres to the rules of the NDA that's actually useful for the composer. We're working on a film that needs some music. Got any? Hello. Yeah, so I find that stuff fascinating. I've only ever signed a few NDAs in my time because I'm not, I don't do customs anymore.
Yeah.
But when I was doing customs, it was all very much like very, very vague. And then I started specially requesting only customs where my music's in play anyway, so it made the job easier for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, because that's I can only imagine how tricky that is for you. Having to kind of describe that you're working on a very big sci-fi film that's nothing to do with any of the films that it's
and we don't already know the characters.
Yes, yeah, and there's no famous themes.
Yeah, exactly. It's although I haven't worked on, like I say, I don't tend to go near the like Marvel and all those. I mean, a lot of those are done in-house in agencies where there's a music team. So I'm not going to get near those. But for a lot of the UK stuff, it's like indie trailer, like smaller budget rom-coms or dramas, or it's usually really interesting projects with the kind of quirky, artsy, like thrillers and things like that. Sometimes they're less protective, like you say, if it's not already a massive IP, then you can kind of go into the story a bit more, because there might be a million dramas about an unhinged psychopath coming out. So
that's pretty much all the trailers I work on, I think, actually. Yeah, I love that area of trailers as well. The kind of smaller budget films. Not that we're speaking broad brushstrokes that all small budget films are interesting to work on, but especially in the sort of thriller area, as a composer, and I'm sure it is for you as well, it's really fun because you can be much more experimental with what you're doing.
Yeah.
You don't have to necessarily worry about the same things you would if you were doing a kind of period drama piece, or if you were doing, like you said, a big Hollywood one, where the rules are there much more rigidly.
Yeah. The editors tend to like the thrillers for that reason, the experimenting. They throw a lot more sound design in. They cut up a cue a lot more. Like it's often quite hard doing the search because it's so unpredictable. Like usually if it's quite a linear edit, I can kind of listen to tracks and instantly know that works, that doesn't. But thriller and horror, they might like invert everything and like stack 50 sound effects on every crunch, and it's quite hard doing those searches because sometimes you're just doing searches off sound design, which is a minefield because you're just going for days. So that's why tracks like all the throat stuff and the things with textures, just delivering editors like those kind of tools are the best for those edits. And I think the supervisor probably does less, broadly speaking, on those kind of trailers because it's less about the arc of the already existing piece and it's more about an editor's like playfulness.
No, I agree. Like my throat stuff gets chopped up all the time, which I have no issue with it. Sometimes when I'm doing a walkthrough of a piece that's landed on a trailer, I'm very aware that this does not sound like what's on the trailer, but it is there, guys. So your preferred place to be is more a complete queue then, or would it be more sort of act 1, 2, 3 breakdowns?
Any section of the trailer really. I guess a complete queue, whether it's running throughout or whether it's for a specific act, because I get asked to do all of that. Like, it might be, we need ideas to kind of cover the teaser and the trailer for this whole campaign. Completely broad, loads of different pacing, like intensity is needed. Or it's like, we're replacing the third act and the intro cue for this. Can we like look at both? And then there are obviously two separate things, but you know which bit of the cue you're kind of looking for, which bit the editor will use, that kind of thing.
So what's your kind of standard deadline for a trailer? So say they've come to you, the edit's underway, and they say to you, we want act 2 and 3. So Emma, go.
I bet you can guess.
Yeah, I can, yeah, because I think I probably get the following emails.
Yeah. It varies. I mean, it's usually end of day or the next day. Occasionally, the clients I'm working with more and more tend to, give more and more time. The more they kind of realize that the longer they give you, the more kind of varied the options can be. But sometimes, there just isn't that time. It's like, we've been told we've got to cut a trailer in 2 weeks. The editor has no music. Send us stuff like within an hour if you can, but by the end of the day, and we'll make it work. And they're up like past 6 p.m. trying to have a go. So stuff's lined up for the morning, or they're downloading all the music. So I need to have sent it before my end of day. So that is why I don't brief out that much. I think people find it strange sometimes, but in trailers, I spend my whole day just writing emails and going through things that people send if I took that method. So I prioritize just trying to be ahead of briefs and save stuff and familiarize with, Richard's done another Throat album or whatever, like, so that it's just there in the back of my mind. And then when they go, you jump into action, and it's like muscle memory with composing. If you're on a custom, you don't have time to like, I'll just try this new plugin and blah, blah, blah. You just go to all your standard trusted favorites. And that's, I have to do that most of the time.
See, the thing is, I think we have both found ourselves in the same groove. As a composer, I don't like reacting to briefs. Briefs for customs. Obviously, I have to have a brief for an album, but I very much rely on people like you knowing my catalog. And this is what I try and tell composers. It's, although customs, they're kind of like the paramount, as it were. There's so much upside for familiarizing yourself with existing catalogs and trying to jump on what you think will be a useful thing for someone who is familiarizing themselves with a catalog. So, like you said, if someone sends out a new album and you go, "Oh, this is exactly what I was looking for. How did they know?" It's a really funny industry because it's almost like there's two halves to it. I think. There's the very reactive trailer stuff. Custom stuff. Sorry.
Yeah. Now you mention it that way, I think that is what I'm avoiding. I'm avoiding panic. Yeah. I'm a panicky person anyway. Like I think I would get too anxious if I knew that I had nothing to fall back on unless I emailed people. I'll get briefs over Christmas or bank holidays or during a time where like Thanksgiving, when I can't reach out to any like LA music suppliers and things like that. Or if I do, they're working too hard by replying. But you don't want to have no safety net with supervising. Like you need that background kind of white noise there, of not white noise, like a kind of it's all
safety net,
floating.
isn't it?
Yeah, and to be able to, I tag stuff myself within Disco. Like I don't rely on Disco's tags. I add like a million more of my own. They're weird, and if somebody was to download the files that I then send on with the new tags, they'd be like, "What the hell does this mean?" But it's my internal like SEO in a way, filtering stuff. I'm like, oh, I know I've saved stuff and tagged it as XYZ, because if I just had it saved as like whatever it is on there, like moody and dark or something, I'd have like 10 million tracks to try and filter through.
Yeah, a couple of things I just want to go on there. So just can you tell everyone what Disco is,
Yes.
just so they know?
Sorry, it's become shorthand.
No. The thing is, I suppose it's my job to eke these pieces of information now.
Disco is a cloud-based music management tool. I think that's the best way of describing it. It's, you subscribe to it, you can have different plans, but it's basically industry standard, at least less so on the library front, because a lot of libraries have their own websites with really advanced like AI, and they've put a lot of money into like having really robust websites that a lot of people in broadcast and things are very used to. So a lot of people do use those, and so a lot of people still use Source Audio, which is another online, I guess, cloud management type thing, like an online library where people can host their music. But Disco, the thing that's great for supervisors is you don't have to spend time downloading up and uploading, which was the bane of my life when I first started my job in-house. All my time was spent unzipping file, like finding stuff, downloading, waiting for it to download, then re-upload it, then move it into folders so that then the internal like control team can pass that to the editor. Stuff that you don't want to spend time doing. It's like with composing, you don't want to be sat bouncing files, you want to be making it and mixing it. So Disco gets rid of all that. I swear I'm not paid by them to say this.
Hey, I asked for the explanation.
Yeah, so it's great. Honestly, you can make custom inboxes per search and things like that. So if I do brief out to people, I make one, and then when if they send it to that, which not everyone does, but if they do, it all comes into that folder in my inbox, and it's all there, and I can instantly move all those tracks into a playlist and then save that playlist and send it. And when you send that playlist to a client, it's streamable on a URL, but it's also downloadable in various formats, and it's in nice folders. It's just a nice interface.
Yeah, it's also got great little perks, like say if I sent you a playlist, I would know if you've listened to it or not, which is so important. Because I mean, I was aware of Disco because whenever Vic would send out the new albums, he'd send me the Disco link, and at the time I just thought it was like some snazzy SoundCloud. It wasn't until Vic and I launched Blue Pearl, our music library for our school, I realized how vital it is for us getting our music into the hands of the wonderful people like you, Emma, and like you say, how important it is to easily playlist stuff. I think if Spotify wasn't so good at playlisting, I don't think it would have half the audience it does. It's the playlisting that's the magic of Spotify, and I think it's the same with Disco, the ease of playlisting. It's great that you can put your own tags in there. I'd like to say I was that forward thinking with my track names. That's I'm doing my crazy tagging, but Vic always retags my tracks. So
the problem is you have to have consistency, because even in my own tags, sometimes I forget that I've made tags for really niche things like anticipatory or apocalyptic or things like that, which fit lots of things. But when I'm in a rush and I'm like applying a few tags and then I forget about the track, I haven't applied some of those, and then you come to have that panic mode in a brief and you're cursing the previous you for not just spending a couple more minutes thoroughly adding them. So what I would say is, if you do get into the habit of doing your own internal library like that, trying to get into supervision, whether if you're just doing it on Spotify and the tags are like the words in the description of your playlist. That's a practice where you could do it. Just make sure that you're consistent with your own rules. Yes. And it'll make your life easier.
Yeah, it's like tagging in anything, isn't it? I hear bloggers talking about that, talking like having like a visualization of the content structure. So you've got like parent tags and do you call them children tags? I don't know. The tags that aren't the parent tags.
I have no idea what you're talking about right now.
Oh, okay. It's just like labeling content. So it's labeling music as well. It's, like for instance, when you go into like a massive music library, and down the left-hand side, there's usually like all the numerous tags, and it would be like rock would be the parent tag, and then I don't know, post-rock, stoner rock. I was going to go for stoner rock, but yeah, post-rock, amazing. Yeah. Post-rock would be the sub-tag underneath it. Right. So yeah, it's tagging is so important, but it's so hard, and you have to have, like you say, you have to have this like wonderful vocabulary of descriptive words at your disposal, and like you said, at your recollection every time.
Yeah, I would write them down. Like if you're wanting to get into supervision, I would just make maybe one of those, online you can make a thing where you put in all the words and it kind of pulls them out and puts them into like a pretty cloud.
A word cloud.
A word cloud. Yeah. Something like that, or just like an Excel document or whatever, and try and write down every word that you can think of that describe. Just listen to loads and loads of different music, like classical through to like garage music or whatever, and write down everything, whether it's a phrase or a word that comes to mind. And then the future you that goes into like supervising and writing briefs, you could just have that up at the side and use it to form stuff. Because like I say, when you're in panic mode and when I know what I'm looking for, and the bit that takes time is like trying to translate that into an email to people that conveys it, isn't too complicated, isn't overly heavy on references and things like that. If you've got all these words that it's like when you're revising for an exam, I used to stick stuff around the house so I'd see it when I opened the fridge, or however you work best, but like trying to get those words to like sink in. So like you say, they're in your vocabulary, because your job as a supervisor, we might get to this anyway, but like your job is, when a producer or an editor describes something, to kind of multiply that tenfold into loads of other descriptive words and unhook what they're meaning but not saying, or what they don't realize they need, and having all those words to kind of beef out a brief will help you find better music.
Yeah. Another word another sort of job title you could call yourself is it's a music translator, really, because not everybody who works on a trailer has a musical vocabulary. Some people are incredibly intuitive with it and can say like 2 words and you go, yeah, I know exactly what you mean, even though they're not musical. Yeah. Some people, however, they're throwing words out and you're thinking like, I don't understand any of this. This is gibberish. So, part of your role, isn't it, is to kind of go, okay, what can I say to whoever I'm emailing, whether it is a consultant or a musician, so that they know what we're talking about.
Yeah. And sometimes you will get it wrong. Like sometimes because the producers or the editors don't have time to come back to me, I just have to take a punt based on experience and like how I think it's likely going to go, of what direction it is. And if that's wrong and they've not come back to me in time to clarify my questions, then like that's a miscommunication and you just have to do the search again. But it's so important to kind of upfront be about, when kind of ask editors and producers, like, when you say this, do you mean this, or do you mean this, or do you mean this, or do you mean this? Because there's lots of nuances in that word, and I could go down a rabbit hole and waste your time and money on me doing searches. So it's just fair to a client to like clarify.
That's amazing advice for every composer out there. Whether you're somebody looking to get into supervision or not, or music consulting, as a composer, that tactic you just described is so integral when you get any kind of brief. If there is anything you're not 100% on, ask. I mean, even the ones that you are 100% on, just to be sure, when you say post-rock, are we talking explosions in the sky, or are we talking, Godspeed? Which one are we going, guys?
Yeah. You will regret not asking as well. Yeah. And somebody phrased it really well to me, which helps with my kind of mental health and like anxieties over, am I doing this right? Sometimes is, if you aren't sure once you receive a brief, whether it's me getting it from a producer or you getting it from me, then that person clearly hasn't communicated correctly. So if you're still not sure and you're left kind of going, I'm fumbling in the dark here, that's not on you. That's on the person that gave you the brief most of the time, but broad strokes.
Yeah. Well, also, it's really important at that stage because, from my point of view, if I was ever in that situation,
yeah,
I'd start to build up a bit of resentment. And that resentment would come out at that person who didn't describe, whether I intended it or not. And, as we know, that's not a good place to be. So, and also just, I'm sure you agree with this, it's not a sign of weakness to ask questions.
No.
When I first started out, I didn't want to ask questions because I was worried they'd find me out as a fraud. So if I pretended I knew exactly what they were talking about, they'd be fine. But actually,
that's dangerous. Yeah,
it is dangerous. Especially, I started out.
There's a fine balance.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I just think it never hurts to ask. Like the teachers tell our kids, there is never a silly question. But I'm sure there is a silly question. But
maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, anyway, I'm going off one. But okay, so music translator, you're translating all the words. You're using tools like Disco. So is Disco your kind of go-to where you then download everything from, or is it, as you say, a mixture of everything? Because you mentioned earlier that you have you've got a hard drive of music that and you're familiar with.
Well, Disco is is online hard drive. Also great because it means I can take my laptop and work anywhere, and all the music is inside Disco. I use that when I've already saved music, or I'm trying to get people to send stuff to me, and I grab it. But like I said, with libraries, most of them have their own sites, so you do have to go in, make your own playlists, download, then I re-upload that to Disco so that everything's housed in one place. Like, my clients are used to getting Disco playlists from me, and I will separate things or put notes or whatever. If it's, this is a library track, blah, blah, blah. This might go over your budget. This is whatever. I kind of create little folders and have my own kind of quirks of how I break stuff down. And, if they receive a search, it's like, oh, this is an Emma search. Sometimes a bit OTT, but I'd rather put more detail in so they don't pursue a queue. And then they're like, oh, said that was from Extreme or something. So.
Yes. Oh, nice. Okay. So I know you can't talk exact figures, but budgets are a really interesting thing. For me, like, as the host of this show, I get a lot of questions. And one of the biggest ones is obviously, how much does a trailer music composer earn? Yeah, well, how much can you work? It depends. I'm interested about not like the size of budgets, but is there ever any kind of rule for division? Sometimes is it like per second of play, or, territories? Just all this stuff is really fascinating, and a lot of people don't really get it. So, myself included. So.
Okay. Let's start. The territories, yes.
Yeah.
Varying, like, whatever. If you're doing worldwide use, that's the most expensive in terms of that parameter, that kind of, I'll call it a channel. Like, if I'm talking different channels of what can make the price go up and down in a quote, territory is one. So a lot of the stuff I work on is made in the UK, but they're getting worldwide rights because it's the international trailer, or maybe they'll do one trailer that's just for the UK and Ireland, and then they'll do a different one that's the worldwide one. So there'll be a bigger budget, hopefully, for the worldwide one. But usually, even when you limit the territory to one country or continent, then you ask for online worldwide, like due to a phrase that people use is like due to the nature of the internet, which is unless your client has got the means to like geo-lock something, like stop people accessing it in certain countries online, which is a whole kind of beast in itself, then you need to get the rights for it to be online worldwide, even if you're just releasing it in cinemas in the UK. It's like, or if you don't want it online, then don't put it online. But what trailer doesn't go out on YouTube? Like, you are usually asking for that. So that's one part. And then the other main parts are the media. So whether you're asking for, like I said, if you're asking for it just to be in cinemas, TV, radio, usually trailers are all media. That's kind of like the starting point, because they tend to go out on lots of things. Like you might release the trailer theatrically, but then you might do TV cut downs. So then you've got to clear that music cue to be able to be used like campaign wide on different things. You okay?
Yeah, sorry, I got a phone call. I was like, I didn't even know my phone was attached to my computer. Sorry, I pulled a funny face. That's what you are, yeah.
And then the term, like the length of the license is the other thing. So usually, again, people just kind of go with in perpetuity. If it's kind of a starting point, just kind of assume that that's what it is, which means always and forever. But a lot of the time, to try and bring costs down, people will limit that. So they'll say, we'll just do it for a year. And then anything beyond that point is like existing archivally online or something like that. There'll be different clauses within a license. So you might have the broad strokes of like, this is what we're agreeing to, but it's for X amount of time on X media and and like it gets more kind of granular the more tight the budget is a lot of the time, or the more negotiations that pass. And then what else did you ask? The size?
Yeah, so you've gone territories, media, then it was length of usage, so 30-second clip, 5-second, and then we can go in further with stems. The thing is, you don't have to answer this. I admit it's quite a tedious question, but it's just one of those things that, like, actually, it's really interesting because the decisions that are made within this part of your job affect the composers.
Yeah. When you say, are you asking, do people license individual stems?
Yeah, I guess I'm asking. Well, I know that they license stems. What I'm asking is, does it affect the budget? Say it's a 30-second slot, and they go, "Well, we're only using one stem." Would there be any negotiation like that, or is it just like bosh, 30 seconds, all media, worldwide, online, in perpetuity? You know.
I think it depends on the person licensing it.
I thought you might say that.
I personally. I think that it should be flexible. Like context is everything in this industry. Like, because some people try and use context to their advantage the other way around, and will be like, "Oh, we're just doing this thing, and it's just, I don't know, it's some small territory, or it's just this, and it doesn't have a very big budget behind it." But what they're not saying is this is like a highly anticipated trailer, or this is a huge thing, or like this will get like global exposure, so you probably should be asking for a lot of money for it, like that kind of thing. I hate all that side of things, and I just prefer honesty, which it is sometimes hard to find, but I prefer to just ring someone and be like, I have to stick to my NDAs of what the client will and won't let me say, but I'm friends with a lot of the people I'm calling, so I'll just be like, okay, I don't really I'm not entirely sure where we're going with this, but my gut feeling is whatever. And you just have a more candid conversational chat. You don't always go in with a heavy email like, and we're using a stem, but whatever. Like, you kind of have a conversational chat and you say, do you think it would be all right if we've got a really, really small budget? I don't know what yet, but it will be small. So do you think we'll be okay to just use the piano stem and nothing else? Something like that. I would say that would usually affect things. Like, if you've got a smaller budget and you're not using a full queue, the reason for that is that it doesn't rule the track out of future use. That's the main reason that people don't want to go below a certain bar of a fee, because like you might not license that queue again. So say it landed on a thing with Olivia Colman in, it's semi big period drama trailer or something like that. It's not huge. Not everyone will have seen the trailer, but it's kind of recognizable enough, and it's a cue that's got a really iconic riff in it or something like that, or a signature sound. It's kind of dead once it's been used on a semi big trailer. So even if someone doesn't know that trailer has happened, you will often get people asking at the point of getting quotes, has this had like a momentous sync already? And they have to tell you if it has, and you have to tell you it's like sync history, or it had like an advert that was just on TV in America or something like that. And if I'm doing a UK trailer, I'll be like, oh, okay, that's fine. But if they're like, oh, it was on this spot for Black Widow, then I'll be like, well, I can't use that for this thing because it's also like sci-fi, so there's too many crossovers. So if you don't negotiate for a good enough price the first time, then you're not doing your composers justice, because they put all that work in for this really cool cue to kind of be used once for a really tiny fee, and then that's it.
What you're describing there is some part of the industry that I don't think I've ever talked about on the show, which is the tainted goods. The idea that sometimes tracks that land won't get landed again because they have been used. They have been soiled by another campaign. That's not always the case, but it can be, like you said, especially if there's contradictory. If they're sitting in similar places. I've had. I think Throat is the exception. I've had a few of the tracks on Throat on quite a few different placements. But I've had that exact situation where two trailers were being negotiated at the same time. And obviously we had to be like, okay, actually, we're kind of negotiating. Well, I didn't Vic did this. Actually, it's kind of almost about to land on this trailer, so the other trailer has dropped it.
That's how hard. I really empathize with the rights holders and like library, like sales side of things, because you don't want to say that too soon and put them off using it. But like, you want to leave it until almost the last minute to tell them, but like not leave it too late that you make them never want to use you again because they've not been honest or upfront about something. I really, that's a horrible kind of, it's a first world problem. Obviously, you've got your track in consideration for two big trailers, and there's money on the table for both things. But like, it's, again, this is why I say honesty is the best. I would expect the people I work with to tell me quite early, because if we're at the point where we're considering it and I go, can I have the stems? I love this track. I think it will really work. I think the editor's going to love it. If they at that point don't tell me, we could go on for weeks and come back and go, okay, it's locked. let's clear it. And then they go, oh no, we already like licensed it for this other thing.
Yeah.
So I think if you're going to pick, I would tell people earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's what happened with us to prevent that issue. Now, yeah, now we've got that sort of the contractual side out of the way, and I kind of want to talk to you about like just a couple more questions. I appreciate I've had you for almost an hour now, had you on the show for almost an hour now. So, what are you listening for when you're listening to cues? Because I mean, obviously, I appreciate that it will be different as per the track and as per the trailer. But is there anything that any kind of like X factor, that you're looking for?
Broad question. I think it sounds too broad. Interesting ideas. Basically, I'll have to tell Kieran so we don't go over this. But
We can save this.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine.
Okay.
It's like a small point, but he'll probably have more to say. I think you can learn all the tools. Like, there's so many YouTube tutorials, and obviously your breakdowns are so helpful for people, me included, trying to learn like what's going into this and trying to make it sound good, which is, I think that's one half of it. But I get sent so much stuff that sounds good and there's no heart to it. There's no guts. There's no like, okay, this just sounds like every trailer ever kind of thing. So I'm listening for two things: as a polished mix, because I will not send it to the editor otherwise, and then inventive, like destabilizing the form or trying something new, like letting your voice speak, or just clarity and ideas. So, like some people get known for a certain sound or a certain, even if they don't intend to, they might get pigeonholed as like a classic neoclassical trailer composer or something. Even when people think of something like that, it's not just neoclassical. They're clearly doing something within that genre. It's like something specific, like really gritty, choppy strings, or I know like signature sounds come up a lot, and I think people are like, after the Black Widow synth that was so popular and a lot of people have emulated, I think, I think I've heard less of like signature sound exploration and more trying to do unusual mixes or like upfront strings or unusual recording textures, and that all that kind of heart and body, and like having the trailer format underneath it is like running throughout, and you have to do a build and you have to have some stop points and you have to have rises and things like that. But beyond that, I think it's like a blank canvas, really.
Yeah, I love that description. Have heart. I often say character as the word.
Yes.
There's some, like you say, you'll press play and say it's a piano track. It starts. You go, yeah, it's a decent line, but there's nothing special to it. But then suddenly someone gives you something which is, you could argue, basically exactly the same, but they've done something. Whether it's reverb, whether it's push it in the mix, whether it's there's something different to the sound, and
it's so hard. It's so kind of I can't find the right word, but like to even describe it, it's like I can imagine people listening are like, but what is the thing? What is the idea? And it's like, I can't describe it. It's an indescribable thing. It's often, one thing I will say is it is often a chord progression. It's often like an interesting cadence or something like that, because trailers are made up of so many of the same chords going around a lot of the time, that when you, like I said, destabilize that, or you pull the rug out from where everyone thinks it's going, that's when you get the editor's attention. Because if they're kind of listening and they're in this safe space and they're like, and it's going, they know where it's going to go, they are assured that they are going to land in a certain place, and then you change that, they instantly go, oh, I've never heard this before. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I try and do when I'm recording throat. Usually act 1 and act 2 for throat is pretty similar, but act 3 I'll go, okay, what would they not expect me to do?
Which is really hard because you obviously expect the same thing. It's really hard to expect something that isn't already in your head.
Yeah, especially in a line of albums. This is the again, first world problems. Oh no, my successful albums. But you get to so we've just finished Piano Works 10. I'm working on Piano Works Throat 6 at the moment, and it's like you're in this realm which is successful, and it's kind of got known for doing something slightly different, but you kind of want to stay doing the same thing and do something different. My brain is melting,
I guess it's like a texture at that point, because if you've used all the ideas and kind of structurally done so many different things, throwing in something a different frequency, or I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, it's the thing is, it's fun. It's all sorts of fun. Yeah. It's just about playing. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Right, Emma. Is there any more? Because you've actually given so much advice for anyone who would like to become a supervisor. What single bit of advice would you say is the most important for anyone who would like to get into music supervision?
I think, like I said before, when I started, I didn't really understand that I wasn't pulling the right stuff. It was kind of like score and stuff. Learn the difference between that and between a trailer cue, and why it works, what a trailer cue does differently. So think in terms of narrative and how fast things move. So I like to say to people that something an editor actually told me, and it made it click for me when I was writing, is editors work in pods. So most of the time. So as it's a generalization, but every few bars something new happens. I know you do this with a lot of your writing, but that broadly is what it is. It's trying to get used to hearing cues that tell that story. So I just try and think of example trailers. So if you're trying to get into it, when you're listening to trailer music, try and listen to it not under the actual trailer. Just listen to different cues and be like, okay, boom, there's a shot of a desert, a couple of bars, a piano ping, we see Zendaya or whatever, a couple of bars, or whatever genre you're in, there's like an arpeggio and a piano going for 4 bars, and then after 4 bars the arpeggio changes one note, a bit like Steve Reich or something. It changes very slightly, and then you're like, so something is happening now, but picture what it is. So it's like someone pulls up to Downton Abbey in a car, and then the next ping is a shot of her walking into the room, and the next thing is someone embracing someone, and it's trying to think of it in those granular steps, because otherwise you'll never grasp the intricacy of every moving part in that trailer cue, and you will just fall on things that don't work, like I did at the start, giving stuff that tonally kind of fits and is mixed well and is in the world of the thing, but it doesn't move the way the edit moves. So it's all about shape and movement, and with a film, every single shot, everything that's in that frame is there for a reason. In a trailer cue, everything is doing something. So whether it's the distorted synth kind of growling underneath, or a piano ping. Like, it's all a device that the editor will pull on for something to happen. So it's just trying to understand music and in that way. And once you unlock that and just can feel things moving, you will know within seconds when you listen to something whether it fits, because you know what you're working on. So you know whether they match. End of TED Talk.
Drop the mic. There we go. No, it's amazing advice. Amazing advice. And actually, the interesting thing is that the advice you're giving is active listening.
Yeah.
It's, and also then if the aspiring supervisor is listening there, picturing, sort of dissecting this trailer structure, then start collating those tags.
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing. I couldn't have said that stuff better myself. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Emma. I really appreciate you taking the time and, going into the details of the job and role of a music supervisor. It's been awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.